Thank you, Jason. I just wanted to say a quick thank you to Dr. Daniels and his team, and particularly Tim Casper from our board for putting this together this morning. This event was obviously planned a few weeks back before, again, the events of the last 10 days. I feel like those events that shall not be named, but we are going to name them. So I just want to say how grateful I am for you all for being here, and to all the members of the DMI Economic Development Committee and the Inclusiveness Committee. I think more and more as we do this work, we realize how interconnected those things are, how interconnected everything is to inclusiveness. And so I'm grateful that we're all here today. It was just 2 weeks ago that we were here talking with Alder Bidar Silaf, and I think that was a really powerful discussion. It was work that we needed to do as well. So I hope, I think that the combined work of these two committees is really building something important, and hopefully will lead to more actions for DMI and for our communities. I just wanted to also just acknowledge, speaking from my own experience as a downtown person, this has been really hard on so many communities, and these communities are not mutually exclusive. It's been hard on the downtown community. It's been hard on our Black community. It's been hard on the broader community. And I think that we're all feeling battered in various ways. And I just want to express kind of my admiration for how downtown is handling this, and how the protesters, particularly some of the protest leaders that have been leading the peaceful protests, I really admire everything that's going on, and I'm happy to be a part of it. So with that, I think I will turn it over to Mark, and just to thank you all for being part of this work. This is important that we're all showing up, and that we keep showing up, and that we don't just show up, and that we, we act on what we're learning here today. So thank you. Mark.
Thanks, Ann, Jason, and Dr. Daniels and team. We were wondering, we had a discussion about how to kick off this meeting, and, what some of the thoughts were around it. And, should we read the statement that was put together? Should we, look at other things that other organizations have done? And we decided to do none of that. I have to say personally, I'm struggling. It's been a tough few days. And for those of you who know me, my sunny disposition has left me for a bit. It will return, but it's a struggle today. The fact that this group is assembled, and for the third time actually working together on issues, gives me hope and lifts me up. I think we spend so much time in Madison about talking about what we do and what organization we do it for. I think, and I hope and I pray that going forward we spend more time talking about and acting about who we are, not what we do. And if we can do that, we can turn the corner on this, and we can help sort of lead other communities. So with that, I will turn it back to Jason, and I look forward to hearing what Dr. Daniels and the team have to say today.
Thank you to both Ann and to Mark for their continued leadership of DMI. We are very thankful for this, and also for the continued partnership between the Economic Development and the Inclusiveness Committee. So we want to get right into our program today. We are very excited to welcome some absolute strong, fantastic community leaders in Madison. First, we're going to hear from Dr. Jack Daniels, the president of Madison College. We're going to be followed by Brian Woodhouse, who's the vice president of Strategic Partnerships and Innovation at Madison College, to discuss all the different opportunities in professional development for people that are struggling right now with the economy and the job losses. So a great message from there. We also have Dr. Tim Casper, Vice President of Institutional Learning and Effectiveness, and a DMI board member with us today. And last but certainly not least, we have Dr. Mark Thomas, who's the Vice President of Ad Services for Madison College. So we will make sure that Dr. Daniels starts off today. Dr. Daniels, the floor is yours.
Jason, thank you. Thank you to DMI. This is not a good time, if you will, but it's a good time to be before a group that is really committed, as it's been stated in your statement yesterday, Jason. Thank you for that statement. I just hope that statement gets out to the wider public, because I think that those voices are going to be key as we move forward. Like Mark, the last 9 days it's been very difficult for me. And what is conjured up for me are all the experiences that I've been involved with, have witnessed, have been active in over the past 40 plus years. Part of my concern, I guess it's more than part, it's a great deal of my concern, is how do we move forward from where we are? But we said the same thing in 1965. We said the same thing in 1968. We said the same thing in 72, 80, 92, 16. And it is very frustrating, as well as, and I'll just be honest with you, I have a lot of anger about this. And that anger is about the systematic racism that we have in this country, and how that systematic racism is infiltrating every element of our society. I think when you start to think through what those next steps are, it's no different from the discussions I've had over the past decades. We have difficulty in talking about race. And the difficulty of talking about race is about it's personal. And if it's so personal, there's going to be that limited interaction because folks don't want to put out how they feel. And on the other side of that coin is asking other folks how they feel. The African-American experience is completely different than the Anglo experience in this country. Being an African-American male is completely different than being an Anglo male. And what types of things that you bring with you with that. And we've never asked that question. How do you feel? Even as a African-American leader in this community, if I am not in my daily uniform, a shirt and tie, and more with my jeans or t-shirt, and I walk into a store and I'm followed around to see if in fact I'm going to take something and not pay for it, I deal with that every day. But how many of the Anglo population does that? It is not something that's isolated, it happens. And how does that make folks feel? We have to have that discussion to really get in terms of what does it mean to be an African-American male and how do they feel? That whole discussion on race is going to be key. I do not condone violence against property because I've seen in the past when that violence happens and it's massive, there is no rebuilding. I grew up in Chicago and I remember 68 very, very well. And those communities that were thriving, that were destroyed, have never come back. And I think we have to be able to stop that. We've got to put up something that says we're not going to stand for that. But the not standing for that does not mean that we, as happened in DC a night ago, forceful types of removal of a peaceful demonstration. That's not that strategy. The strategy has to be something that's going to be sustainable for a long period of time so that we do not come back to this same point that we seem to come back to constantly. And part of that also is whose voice is out there. We need to have voices, voices that you don't even expect. It might be your neighbor. It might be a business leader. And I know that there have been business leaders in this community who have stepped up, just like DMI in that statement, that they've stepped up to their communities. I know that from CUNA. I know that from Quartz. I know that right now, this is for us the best opportunity to address these issues. And we have to collaboratively. And I think there's one other element here, and many have spoken about it. If you're going to make real change, you've got to do real change at a ballot box. Who are we putting in leadership roles from an elected position that can speak with integrity, that can speak with empathy, and can lead effectively? That's just not at a national level, that's at a state and a local level as well. And being able to bring that together. So yes, it's been a very, very difficult 9 days. I think it's going to be important to reach out to folks, and even though you may not understand the experiences that individuals have, the empatheticness that you need to have in listening to and just sitting down and trying to understand where that's coming from. A simple, how are you doing? An authentic, sincere, how are you doing? To African Americans in this community would go a long way. This morning, I've had 2 phone calls, and those phone calls are from individuals outside of this community who I've worked with in the past, who are calling just to say, how are you doing? How are you feeling? And we've got to be real sincere about that as we walk down these pathways. And we have to do it collaboratively with the same level of intensity and definitive approach that we see that is happening today. I don't know if you want me to move on and talk about what's happening at COVID. I'll just say briefly, because COVID's going to be with us. Racism has been with us. And they're both elements that we've got to be able to jointly address. But the college has been very consumed with COVID-19 a little bit prior to March 15th. And we set up teams. Those teams look at instruction. Teams will look at the facilities, look at public safety, look at students. And those teams have done tremendous work. Over a 2-week period at the end of March, faculty came together and put courses on remote that they have never done before, and did in a very, very short period of time. They've done tremendous work, the faculty have at Madison College. We've put online, in terms of our student services, missions, financial aid, counseling, advising. They've done tremendous work to get students prepared and continue to be connected to them as we go through this crisis. We have students who are trying to complete their spring term, as well as students who are in those occupations that are essential. Healthcare, first responders. And we are continuing to doing that training throughout this period of time. And we started back doing that for a small group of people in mid-May. We are now focusing in on our summer term, getting that word out that we are here, how we're going to be presenting our classes. The majority of our classes during the summer will be online. But we have to also have an eye toward the fall and the spring. We have to be prepared to turn on a dime if there's a spike or some other crisis comes. We have every intent to open August 31st as the start of our fall semester. Every intent, unless something else says you can't do that. And that's with not just our online, but our face-to-face classes as well. And we're working through what that balance looks like. Because there's many classes that we offer that demand the face-to-face, especially in the technical occupations that we train for. But we have so many other decisions that we have to make, notwithstanding entry and exit to our buildings. How do we ensure that when folks come in, that they're not infected, sick, have been having other contact with individuals? What do we do about our athletic programs, events that are held on campus? Those are decisions that we have to come to some conclusion no later than the end of July with, and we will do that. I will tell you, you've heard all hands on deck. I guarantee you at our college, all hands are on deck. And we're working industriously through all of these processes. I'll just stop there and I guess turn it over to Brian.
Am I now unmuted? I'm gonna presume that I am. So, thank you, Dr. Daniels, and for all of you on the call. I think you can understand why President Daniels is and has been such a great leader for our institution. So, thank you for those comments. Yeah, this has been a very challenging time, obviously, for all of us. To give you a little context, I thought I would just talk about two specific units at the college that I work closely with, and maybe touch on a third. That is what we call our Division for Business and Industry Services and our professional development offerings. Also talk just a little bit about the Center for Entrepreneurship, some of the things we're doing there, and then maybe just a quick minute on our School of Workforce Development. So. Yeah, the events over the last couple of months, obviously, and certainly 10 days have caused us all to pivot quite a bit. In our business and industry services area, that is an area of the college that we call our customized instruction. So we have a long history of going out to companies, asking what is it that you need, and then building specific services, often in leadership, customer service, Lean, Six Sigma, things like that, and then coming in and delivering that. And typically we work with over 100 companies every year to develop custom training for them in all kinds of different areas. Over the last couple of months, we really had to step back and say, okay, how can we, in this time of a little bit of craziness, continue to provide value to businesses in our area. So we are continuing, obviously, to do custom instructions for any businesses that request that or need that right now. But we've also taken an opportunity to use our staff to create some new things that are free. to the community to try and be of service in this time of need. One of the things that we have created is what we call our Wednesday webinar series. And I know a lot of places are doing webinars these days, and that's something that we have also gotten into. So we're running free webinars every Wednesday at 1 o'clock. We just did one, actually we have one coming up next week on 10 practical tools to restart your small business. We're using some of our protective safety people to do domestic violence impacting the workplace. That is something that has been trending. Incident management, strategies for making meetings online more interactive, organizational culture, some things like that. So we have a webinar scheduled all the way out through the end of July every Wednesday, again, free to anyone that wants to attend. We've also taken an opportunity to create what we call a Take 10 series. And that is just 10-minute little video snippets that anyone can take, hopefully a 10-minute break in a crazy day and get a little bit of information from us. We've got marketing tips for reopening your business, cost-saving strategies, taking care of yourself while you're working at home. This has obviously been challenging for everybody. And those are pre-recorded, so anyone can come out and just view those, take a break, watch those. Those are not on a scheduled time necessarily. We are continuing to run professional development classes through the summer. We have, as Dr. Daniel said, moved everything online. And for a unit that is used to doing mostly face-to-face instruction, it was challenging, but I'm proud of our team that has been able to pivot and do that. Right now, we do have about 60 sections out there that are open enrollment this summer, topics such as leadership. We're doing some new Python programming. We do quite a bit in computer skills and data analytics. And the last year or so, we've been doing quite a bit in some new business stuff in craft brewing and food trucks. And we'll see how that all comes together this summer, given the situation. Another really interesting thing that we've been able to put together, we had been working on a certificate around the topic of well-being. This would be a degree certificate. Well, given everything that's happened, we thought, how can we take some of this content and make that freely available to people who could really use an uplift at this time? So we created a 6-week course called Building Blocks of Well-Being. And it's a course that focuses on really maintaining optimism, gratitude, a positive outlook that we all need at this time. And so let's put that out there for free enrollment as well. So as of today, we have 5 sections of that enrollment, 5 sections running, with about 50 different people enrolled in each of those. It's been very successful, a free offering, and we're looking at maybe opening another section middle of June. So I can certainly get that out to the DMI group to share with this population. So that's some of the things we've been doing through our business and industry group. Also, we have the Center for Entrepreneurship at the college, and I think the services that we're offering there have never been more important than they are now as we turn our focus to recovery. We do a lot of work with our students on helping them develop business plans. We just finished our 8th annual business plan competition a couple of weeks ago. But some of the services that are available to the community, to the business community through the center are our entrepreneurs in residence. So we have 3 entrepreneurs in residence right now. We have Brian Lee, who's a hospitality expert. We have Gina Stevens, who works on marketing, public relations, and Scott Cole, who is our tech expert, if you will, software expert. But they are open to the community for anyone who is looking to start a business, or how do I come out of this, to tap into those resources. And we'll also be doing a variety of free workshops, as we've done for quite a while, but those will be online this summer. We're doing some stuff on how to build a website from scratch, how to get the most out of your team in an online environment, and a variety of topics along those lines through the center as well. And then the last thing that I wanted to just touch on is our School of Workforce and Economic Development works closely with the Workforce Development Board of South Central Wisconsin. So as resources become available and as we get a little more clarity on what are the next skill trainings, what are the new emerging trends and professions post-COVID-19, we will be scaling up academies, short-term trainings to reskill people for those positions. And again, we'll have more on that as it becomes more clear, but excited about that work and how we've been able to pivot in the last couple of months to make these resources available.
Thank you very much, Brian. We appreciate it. Tim, did you want to add any remarks? Perfect. So we are going to open it up for questions for any of the participants today, for Dr. Daniels, for Brian Woodhouse, or for Tim, if he wants to take questions as well. We have one question already from board member of DMI, Tanya Ibarra. Is the context and perspective of these courses for Anglo businesses, or do you have courses for non-Anglo businesses as well?
The context is for both. We don't have it dedicated towards Anglo or non-Anglo businesses. But working with our entrepreneurs and residents, we do have some different focuses there. Gina Stevens works specifically on non-Anglo businesses. So we do have some resources available in that context.
Brian, you want to speak to work with the Latino Chamber and the Black Chamber?
Yeah, happy to. Thanks for mentioning that as well. Yeah, we've been able to develop a great relationship with the Latino Chamber and did a MOU with them just a few months back that is taking their Tu Empresa training, their incubator training, and articulating that to the college. So individuals who go through that and complete their training will be granted 3 credits of entrepreneurship at the college. We're also working closely to share some of our resources with the Latino Chamber, some of our faculty and staff helping to lead some of the training through Tu Empresa. We're also looking at some joint grant applications that we'll be applying for in the near future. So that's been a fun and very productive partnership we've been able to put together. We're also working closely with the Black Chamber. We are providing some of our software. We have some software for business planning tools that we use for our classes and in the Center for Entrepreneurship. We're making a limited number of licenses available for members of the Black Chamber to take advantage of that software, and we'll have faculty available to guide them through use of that tool. And much like the Latino Chamber, we're working with them to develop a potential MOU for other services in how we could use our faculty and staff to assist those members as well.
Perfect. We want to open it again up for discussion for the rest of our committee. So please, if you have a question, raise your hand. We can call on you, or you can put your question in the chat function. Again, any questions for any of our panelists on any of the topics that have been discussed today. One question that I wanted to have for both Tim and Dr. Daniels and Brian as well. You know, you guys made a strong move towards online education a few years ago. How has that sort of knowledge that you've gained over the last few years really helped you in these last few months where the higher education system has changed so dramatically?
Well, as you know, we've been a leader in online learning for at least a decade. And what we've learned helped us through this process, because we already had instructors who were teaching online who could help other instructors. We also have a unit called CETO, and that CETO focuses on teaching and learning. And in CETO, there are trainings for faculty to develop, create, and put their courses online. And we've been working with faculty throughout the time with that. And so we are doing that right now currently, because what we're doing, many of the faculty are enhancing their courses, strengthening their courses from an online perspective. We also are going to, in our hiring, and we've had a discussion yesterday, of what should we be asking for new faculty coming in. And not just from a hiring standpoint, but once they have come to us, what training are we going to give them so that they can develop their courses as well? And we are very much down the road in doing that as well.
Got another question about, might be too early, but is there any data on how COVID has affected enrollment?
To see the true effect of COVID will take time, because what happens is you get an event that occurs and you may see a huge decline, but what the impact is over an 18-month period. We know right now that our summer program, they're lagging a little. They're in the 5 or 6% range in terms of being down. And we see a much higher percentage in terms of the fall currently. Students need to know what's going to be offered, how it's going to be offered, that we're going to be there for them. And we are doing everything we can in terms of marketing, getting that word out. We've done calls to students, all students who were in our spring programs, so that they understand that we are going to be here for them. So it's too early to tell, but we will keep a good eye on that as we continue down the pathway.
Thank you very much. Our next question actually comes from Ann Morrison. Ann, do you want to ask your question yourself, or I can ask it for you?
I'm happy to ask it because I can unmute myself. I have the power. My question was similar to Tanya's question, piggybacking on that. I was curious if Madison College has or has explored programming similar to Marquette's ACRE program for real estate. That was my question. If you're familiar with it, I'm not sure.
I'm not specifically familiar with the ACRE program. If you can give me a little context on that, yeah, I could answer that.
Yeah, so the ACRE program is, and I'm not an expert on it, it's a program within Marquette that focuses on real estate development and real estate training for people of color. And I think it's been the leading program in producing, students, professionals that have gone on to do a lot of the development in Milwaukee that's done by people of color. And some of the ACRE graduates are the developers of color that are doing work here in Madison. So.
Yeah, sounds fantastic. Through our School of Business and Applied Arts, we do have a real estate certificate. So we do, I believe it's 12 credits. So we do training on, part of it is, prepares them to take the real estate exam as well and become licensed in that, but also in real estate trends and development. Is not a specific focus on a particular demographic of students. It is an open enrollment program, but it's maybe a little bit similar.
Perfect. The next question is from Ron Luskin. Ron, I think you can unmute yourself and ask a question.
Thank you very much. Dr. Daniels, I really appreciate you being with us this morning and appreciate your remarks. And as a white man, I just have no comprehension what it is to have grown up in the United States being an African-American individual. I think that at times like this, we seem to turn to people like you, to Reverend G, to Michael Johnson, to Clean Care, and some other leaders in the community. And this is less of a question for Dr. Daniels. It's more of a question for those of us who are leaders of DMI. I wonder, when is it that we, the leadership in the white community, are going to convene, and when are we going to challenge ourselves to think about what we are going to do and what we are going to take responsibility for in making changes? I think we need to get beyond the point in time when we look to hear from the African-American leadership about their circumstance and know that the responsibility lies with us. And for those of us who are leaders in the white community, to take responsibility for understanding our history. And so I put the challenge out to the leadership of DMI, of which I'm a part, and say, when are we going to convene a meeting and talk about what we are going to do substantively in the immediate future to bring about change?
Thank you, Ron, very much for the question and your continued leadership at DMI. You have been someone that has been so helpful in our journey in inclusiveness, and I want to thank you for that. You've been a great mentor to me. But absolutely, I think that's right. We need to have these conversations as leaders, as white leaders, to make sure that we are there to help however we can. We're certainly going to start that conversation tomorrow at 4 o'clock with the Inclusiveness Committee, and then we hope to have those conversations into the future and as long as we need to. So I would ask that you continue to be part of those conversations and make sure that we get as many people as we can to conversations. The next question we have is...
If I could say something.
Yeah, absolutely, Dr. Daniel, sorry.
I have to put in a caution, and thank you, Ron, for your remarks. Experiences that I've been a part of for the past 40 years, it always had those conversations. And we have to figure out, what is it leading to? What are the outcomes that you're trying to achieve? Measurable outcomes that you're trying to achieve, and have a path and a plan to do that. What I would not want to happen is you have this great conversation, and then a month from now, it's all forgotten. And wherever the conversation is, it has to be focused, have outcomes, and really do some action about it that's going to impact the communities. I have a cabinet of 8 individuals, and we're going to sit down next week with a facilitator and have our real first facilitated discussion on race and what it means for the institution and what it means for our engagement with the community. And you may want to start at that point before branching out, taking those small groups, because it is a big chunk. It's a large elephant. And I've always found that if you take it in bits and pieces and have success with those, then you can build upon it as building blocks.
Thank you, Dr. Daniels. That is very helpful and a certainly great frame of reference for us. A couple more questions we have. From Tanya Barra, what supports do students who are graduating need? How are the employment prospects looking right now?
Tim, you want to answer that, or?
Well, I think, as we study the economy and look at what that means for our enrollment as well as our graduates, we understand that the students who have graduated this spring and those who might be graduating in the fall, December of 20, are facing the most difficult job market we've seen since 10 plus years ago, right, with the Great Recession. And in many ways, as we're going through this reopening a little bit, will that help, right, the economy a little bit, is the question we're asking ourselves. And will that therefore be more beneficial to our graduates? Now we know, right, that some of our graduates are, even in this health pandemic / economic crisis, right, are in high demand, right? Information technology program graduates, we're all running on information technology, right? We need those folks in your businesses and the government and other nonprofits. Healthcare professionals, right? We know that they are continuing to have, the impacts of baby boom and retirements, right, associated with that generation of their workforce. We know and appreciate that some of them have been having to furlough their employees as part of this health pandemic, which seems counterintuitive to many of us, but my wife works in healthcare, and that is true. That's what's been happening at her organization. But nonetheless, we expect those folks to get hired back. Police, fire protection, those types of public services, again, similarly, we would expect people to continue to be hired in. We think about areas of emerging need. We've been thinking about communication and planning, and some of the skill sets that Brian talked about that we're offering training on for small businesses are skill sets, right, that we can offer complete degrees in and do currently. But I think what we've learned from this crisis as business and industry, as government, as nonprofits, as K-12, as colleges, is how do we communicate things to our customers, in our case students, more effectively? And how do we do better planning for these big events that are going to occur? Because while today we're dealing with a public health crisis and the issue of race, right, there could be other future large shock events that come to us. What we haven't talked about today in this meeting, but others have been talking about as we went into the pandemic, is that there are two white rhinos staring at us. And I would add three, right? One is the issue of race in America. Another is climate and what that's doing to us, right? And what that means for us. And the third is pandemics, health pandemics, right? We have seen more of them across the globe in our recent lifetime. So thinking about that uncertainty and preparing people for it is what we're focused on.
The next question we have is a question that I remember at one point, housing being a challenge for Madison College students. Is housing still a big barrier for the college?
I think housing continues to be a barrier for our students. We don't have housing. And at this point in time, there's no intent to have housing. But when you think about cost of housing, in addition to the other things that students have on their plate, because it's just not about housing, it's about food, it's about their children. You know, our average age of our students is 27. They bring a lot of other experiences with them and their day-to-day lives that they'll have to deal with. So I think housing from a general perspective is problematic, but we are not moving in that direction at the college.
I think the next question was from Joanna Bursch, but I all of a sudden do not see Joanna on the call. I think she must have dropped off. Right now, we've gone through all of the questions. Anyone else have any questions? We'll open it up. Please just basically raise your hand or send the question through the chat function.
Hey, Jason.
Yes.
This is Tanya.
Tanya, yes. Yes, hi, Tanya.
I just want to acknowledge that I was sending all my questions to Jason because I had a 7-year-old doing homework and I had to make sure that she's doing homework. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, she goes to YouTube and not good. I also want to add context to my questions and saying that the reason why I'm asking these questions is coming from a place of figuring out how can the DMI network and the DMI wealth of knowledge, expertise, and resources can assist some of these students. I think it's really hard for a 27-year-old that potentially has housing and food insecurity come out of a two-year degree into an employment difficulty. And so I think that we have an opportunity to maybe make stronger connections and know about those opportunities to make those opportunities more possible. And so that's where I'm coming from in terms of learning about what's going on, because I think that I feel the DMI network is a, there goes the video, sorry. I'll stop there and spare you the background noise of my 7-year-old. But that's where I'm coming from, and I just want to add that context to it.
Perfect. I think we've got Joanna is back on. So Joanna Burris, you're up next.
Hi, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Dr. Daniels, thank you so much for your comments regarding people not speaking up their true thoughts. And I think especially with the meeting tomorrow at 4 p.m., in my experience being part of the D&I conversations in different groups that I'm part of, memberships, it's been hard to get forward, to move forward, because the mentality has been, well, you say what you think first. And I think people are just afraid to step on each other's toes. How can we create a platform that allows people to really speak up? Because I think this is the time for us as leaders to really lead with honesty and truth and integrity, to show people that we are a community that can move forward together. We don't all necessarily, and I expect that not everyone's going to agree on certain things, but I think if we're really going to be moving forward together, people have to say what they think. Otherwise, you're going to be hit by something left field. So what are your thoughts on really getting people to speak up?
That's a very difficult question, but it's a great question. I think about in the classroom and trying to get students to speak up, have nothing to do with any of what we're talking about. I think part of it is what is the relationship that you develop initially? Because they have to be in an environment that's comfortable for them to speak, because you're asking about vulnerability. And how do you create an environment where they feel comfortable? And that's why I go back to saying you got to do this in small steps. You can't do a large groups in doing this. I think you also have to go to the folks who have a better connection with the communities. And so I know that Centro has a much better connection with the Latinx community than truly Madison College does. How do we engage them in making that environment conducive so that they feel that they're not going to be hurt by it? Or if they put something out there, everybody just shuns them. I would say the same thing about the Urban League, the Hmong community. All these communities and their organizations can help in helping to develop that type of environment. But it is difficult. And to be quite honest, we have a lot of folks who just sit back, and we need their voices. And we don't need them saying, okay, that's good, I've heard it, fine. No, what are the actions that you're going to take about it? And you got to be empathetic about it. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, as always, Dr. Daniels. Another question from Ann Morrison.
I'm sorry. I was hoping that maybe you could share with us more about what's happening with your campus in South Madison and what you see as kind of the future of Madison College as an anchor institution on that corridor, and what your hopes are for that community and how we can help.
I'll say a few things, and I'll ask Mark to chime in because he's been a part of this discussion as well as Tim. You know, when we went to South, with Goodman South Campus, is trying to meet the need of the community. And that was a training need. It's also a gathering need, a community need. And those goals have not dissipated. We're still focused in on that. But we also know that we've got to provide the types of skill and training so folks can go into good wage earning positions and have a career for them. So let me take healthcare for example, because we're having a lot of these discussions internally right now. And as Tim talked about, you know, that's a huge need in healthcare. And it's just not from the RN or what we call ADN perspective. It's the CNA, it's the practical nursing, it's a health aide. So what is the pathway that we need to develop so we can get more folks who have been left out of that in that type of arena? And we're looking at South as doing that. We have even talked about expanding our ADN cohorts to South so that we have a full pathway. That's in the discussion phase right now. The same thing is with IT. Again, another demand area. How do we get more folks, especially folks of color, in those areas that in the past they have been left out of? And we're looking at how we can do that as well. We are space confined by what we have. So how do we best configure our South Campus to meet those needs? And of course, we have the Early College STEM Academy. And looking at how can we have embedded programs within that STEM Academy where those students are actually getting certificates along the way in addition to their STEM instruction. So those are just some of the things that we're looking at to broaden that base out there. Mark, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, thanks. This is Mark Thomas, even though it says Tim Casper. Thanks for the link, Tim. Mark Thomas. So yeah, when we went to South, this is our first full academic year. I remember wrapping up, and so one of the things that we said we would do is we worked with the community to determine what the needs were, and we were going to try some things. As Dr. Daniels said, success in the health professions, we saw that. Not as much success in some other things. And so there are some other spaces that already, one of the keys for us was to continually review, monitor, and assess the needs of the community. Don't just put it up and say, okay, we're done. Right? And so we've done that throughout the course of the year, and we think about needs that have been identified in terms of transportation, childcare. We've not seen great enrollments in some of the courses in the industrial mechanical. And so as Dr. Daniels is talking about, not just supporting the broader community need for the health professions, but we're looking already at some spaces that we may be able to flip to other uses and address an ADN program, perhaps by taking over an industrial mechanical program that hadn't been highly enrolled, just as an example. Really important for us, as Dr. Daniels mentioned earlier as well, is working with those local organizations. I mean, we are literally across the street from Centro. We are literally across the street from Urban League. We are down the street from Boys and Girls Club. We are down the street from literacy. And so it's been really important for us at the get-go. You know, we talked about this for the whole time I've been at the college, 6 years. And over the last 5-6 years, we've worked with the community to identify the need. We've just got to keep doing that and keep understanding what the needs are and not feel like, okay, that's it, we've got a solution. So the college has been really vigilant about continuing to assess the needs, and that list of things that I just mentioned, transportation barriers, childcare needs, are things that we're continuing to look at how we can address those.
Brian, you may want to speak to the entrepreneur. Brian could speak to the entrepreneurial efforts at South.
Yeah, we've really tried to build up a strong presence. We do have an entrepreneurship center at South, combined with the STEM Center, Early College STEM Academy. So we're doing very close work with them. But our focus has been make sure that we're visible, that we have our staff down there, that we have our entrepreneurs and residents at South with doors open to talk with students about their ideas. We've made a very strong focus on having entrepreneurial and STEM related activities at South Campus so that all of our students are seeing that as part of our portfolio, aware of it, and really trying to put those activities front and center so that students take advantage of those.
Got time for one more question. I think it's important. A comment that I heard from Dr. Daniels during your presentation about South Madison campus is you said you were running out of space. I think it's important for this group to understand what has happened at that campus. Tim and I have had several questions, and the incredible momentum you have at that campus about how many students are using that facility, how many new students that are local to that area. I would love for you guys to quickly tell that story because I think it is so important for not just South Madison, but for our entire community.
Tim, you want to?
Sure. And those stats aren't at the top of my head, but one of the reasons we went to South Madison was because when we looked at the demographics, we knew there were people that had completed their high school degree, but had not yet earned a college credential, right? I want to say it's like 30-some% of the population in that zip code down there. And we know that there are folks who, still need to get their high school diploma and GED, but again, that isn't the only population that needs Madison College's services. There was this large percentage of the population that had completed that high school credential and now needed to get some sort of post-secondary credential. And so when we were looking at our data, starting last fall, and Jason's referring to the celebration we had the 4th or 5th week of school year, I think it was, and we were talking, and one of the things we noticed in our data was we were beginning to meet that mission need of access, right? That folks who were not coming to us at our other campuses in Madison were beginning to come to us in South Madison because we were there in their area, because we really focused on designing the physical space to reflect the communities that we want to serve down there. And we continue to try and focus on recruiting a faculty and staff that also reflects the students, not just in South Madison, but across our district, which is becoming more diverse as well.
Perfect. Well, we've run out of time, but I think one of our members, Kristen Schmidt of CG Schmidt, says it best. She says, thank you to Dr. Daniels. Thank you to the Madison College team for your leadership at DMI for creating the platform for an open discussion. So thank you all. Thank you to Dr. Daniels. Thank you to Dr. Tim Casper. Thank you to Dr. Mark Thomas, also known as Dr. Tim Casper as well. Tim did mention when we were signing in that there are 2 Tim Caspers in Madison. We didn't know if he had a doppelganger. And a huge thank you to Brian Woodhouse. Again, I urge all of you to attend our open forum tomorrow at 4 o'clock. All the information is located on our website, www.downtownmadison.org. But from the DMI organization, an enormous thank you to Madison College for all of the work they're tirelessly doing for our entire community. We cannot thank you all enough. Hope everyone has a good day, and we'll be here if you need anything at all. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
Jason, thank you. Yes, College.